like advisors of reforms of democracy development in Ukraine, and he's a great lawyer. So today also Kendall wanted to have a speech about new American programs, and we will send also this video not only to American partners but to Ukrainians, and many people wanted to know more about Biden initiatives and how it works for Ukrainian. And please, your conclusions, Kendall, we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Katya. This has been an amazing program, and I've learned so much. The way I can try to thank you and your colleagues is to not talk too long, because it's been a couple hours and I don't want to take more time than necessary. But I do want to quickly talk about three U.S. American perspectives from the government, from the media, and then at the human level. At the government level, I think it's fair to say that President Biden has been very, very forward and put a lot of time and energy to this. As you know, his leadership was criticized as we left Afghanistan. But I think in this instance, he is doing as much as he can to try to restore America's role as the leader of the free world. And so I think he believes that Ukraine is absolutely essential to America's role, as well as, of course, his personal concern for the Ukrainian people. And I think you've seen with the military weapons that have been coming in, the extraordinary level of sanctions that have been applied, and of course, the private sector initiatives that Eric was talking about are also quite important. But I think you could say that this administration has really done its utmost, short of sending in troops, to support Ukraine. And there's more they can do, and they're having conversations with President Zelensky. But this is a firm commitment. It will not be changed by the midterm elections. Many people expect that in November, and heaven forbid that there is still a war in November, but none of us know, that in November, the Republicans will probably recapture the legislative part of the government. But Biden will still remain in the White House. He'll still remain responsible for foreign policy. He'll still be responsible for U.S. Efforts to support Ukraine's defense. So that is not going to change. And in a country like the U.S., where everyone disagrees with everybody about almost everything, it's been extraordinary to see the consistency with which Americans support the Ukrainian people. I have trouble thinking of anything that we've been so unified about in a very long time. The media overwhelmingly supports Ukraine and is opposed to the war. There are some publications that put more time and energy on it than others. And I'm always concerned with US media that as time goes by, perhaps there will be less attention, and it's very important that attention remain focused. But so far, the media is, I would say, largely united. The people of the United States themselves feel great sympathy and a great sense of connection to the Ukrainian people. The Ukrainian people are seen as heroic, as people who are surprising the world with the strength of their courage and their resistance. And Americans are very, very sympathetic. And you see that, I think, and I want to talk for a minute about President Biden's initiative to welcome up to 100,000 Ukrainian refugees. And I think that number will increase. We've had conversations with officials in the government about the need to increase that. But right now, the number we talk about is 100,000. And it's based on a 2-year program that allows a U.S. sponsor, and the U.S. sponsor can be any citizen, any green card holder who has a certain minimum financial qualification to act as the sponsor. And you don't have to be rich to sponsor a refugee. And then they apply to sponsor some particular individual in Ukraine. And we're hoping that the process of immigration for clearing first the sponsor, the U.S. sponsor has to be approved, and then the individual in Ukraine will work smoothly and quickly. In our immigration system, the backlogs are notorious for delays. But for a brief period, we addressed that by allowing Ukrainians to come in across the Mexican border with a 1-year permission to stay here. And close to 15,000 people came in that way. Now this program is intended to allow a 2-year permission to stay here and be able to get work papers based upon having a U.S. sponsor. And just as an example of the reaction of American business and American people, Goldman Sachs immediately announced a partnership to help mobilize Americans to sponsor. And they've got dozens and dozens of supporting church organizations, people at every level, volunteer lawyers, volunteer citizens are trying to help Ukrainians in every way they can. And so what I've been involved with is more providing volunteer legal services to help people explain their rights and find their way. But we're all in this together in the United States. And hopefully we will all see this together with you in the near future. As that happens, the final thing I wanted to mention, and Irina talked about this somewhat, is rebuilding. I think, Katya, you talked about a Marshall Plan for Ukraine, but there will need to be a program, perhaps in the not too distant, to start rebuilding. And we've already begun some discussions with that. Right now, people in our government are focused on the war and now this new immigration policy, but it's not too early to begin to think and talk and try to advocate for a way to rebuild the devastation in Ukraine and hopefully help the Ukrainian people have their heroism matched by our support, not just in the war effort, but in the rebuilding effort.
Thank you. And can you please also explain a little bit about this laws which was voted 2 weeks ago in Parliament, because not every person in Ukraine understands what it was for. I mean, bills about trade ban, and also a little bit why so long decision making in the United States, because also not for every Ukrainian understandable why, for example, from executive order, we must wait in for procedure, and why, for example, from Parliament, we must wait in White House, you know, so some comments about these issues.
Well, our Parliament or our Congress moves very slowly, and it's very difficult to get new laws passed by our Parliament, our Congress. So what has being done is executive orders from the White House, as you described, which then need to be executed at the administrative level by the bureaucracy. Bureaucracies always take time, but I have to say that from the time President Biden announced 100,000 refugees, and they very quickly started letting people in across the Mexican border, to the announcement of the program that has begun as of yesterday, as Monday. By our standards, by our very slow standards, that is light speed. That is a record. And the program has actually fallen into place, and hopefully with the support of American businesses and individuals, the sponsorships will start lining up pretty quickly. The White House has immense power in areas of foreign policy and immigration. So getting things through Congress is very difficult. Getting things from the White House, it's a matter of willpower. And I think there is a very strong will to help the Ukrainian people.
Катерино, немає звуку. Включіть звук.
Yeah, sorry. What we must do better for advocacy Ukrainian questions. So it's more question about working with American people. So working with media, working with like direct letters, or it's more working with like people in Congress, in Senate, because, for example, we from the last week also wrote letter to every senator and letter with situation about Ukraine. And I also have invitation to 4 meetings for the next week, and other senators also, like 7 letters. They explain about Biden's program, who from Biden's party, from Democrats. But what also many people come to everyday demonstrations, and this week also will be 2 big demonstrations. One with opposition of Belarus, and second like big demonstration of National Mall. What other tools we must use to be more effective and not to go to oblivion, because in some months also this term can go to oblivion in like public understanding and public consciousness, you know?
Yeah, there's a risk of that. Afghanistan was very much in everyone's minds, and then it kind of disappeared. And some of the Afghan refugees have still not been resettled. So it's all the things you're talking about, the demonstrations, the letters, developing relationships with reporters who will continue to write, continue to find new stories to keep in the news. The other thing I would add, and again, this gets back to what you and Irina and others have discussed, is the rebuilding side. Need to stay in touch with Republicans. Right now, the Democrats have the U.S. House and have the Senate. It's probably going to change in November. And it's not too early when we look down the road toward the rebuilding to begin to build relationships on the Republican side. I know that you hate to think that U.S. politics could have be so back and forth, but it's important that this not be seen as an issue for Democrats. This must be seen as issues for all the American people.
Yeah, for sure. For example, we wrote to all politicians, even not only to politicians, but also to Department of State, also to NGOs. So because it's we must work with all issues. And one more question from me, and I see that also we have a member of Ukrainian Parliament here on Skorokhod, and questions from our colleagues, maybe 2 minutes more. And my question is about Marshall's Plan. So it will be planned like helping to government, or it will be planned like humanitarian aid, and wider this humanitarian aid to NGOs, charity foundations, because it's also people don't understand how it will be. And if we will be, I can be direct honest, because I'm not like in parliament here, that we have problems with delivery of this humanitarian aid. We have some problems with inner like political solutions. I mean, like procedures. Yeah, so I'm saying that some procedures which now we used, for example, big like opportunities to government business, like державні підприємства, it's government business, which is quite corrupted. It's not right solution to give to people humanitarian aid. And also situations that we don't use Ministry of Social Justice to help people in villages. So we have some problems in our country. What we must do to lobby this Marshall Plan and to do it effective, and what institutions must be involved, and maybe what steps we must moving forward. and what institution we must ask, and what documents we must prepare from every region. Because today you see politicians from Nikolaev, my father, quite famous politician from Kherson region, and now they fighting for the occupation of Kherson. Many people from here, they also work in Western Ukraine. So what we all must do in procedure, because in value point, we understand this, but in procedure, I need you as lawyer can like clarify this process.
Well, the important thing is for you and your colleagues to be involved in the design of the plan, because, and it's painful to give the example, but many billions of dollars went to Haiti after the earthquakes. And yet there seemed to be very little success in delivery and in making the changes that were needed. It is not enough just to spend money, which the U.S. will do. And I believe that this is a good time to reach out to people that we think will be important decision makers in the government appropriations process. Of course, the White House has a lot to say about it, but money is actually, the U.S. government is actually funded through the Congress and through the Senate. And from my standpoint, at least, and again, I hate to keep predicting defeat for the Democrats, but conversations with Republicans who will be involved in the appropriations in the money process with you and your colleagues could be very effective in just beginning to get people to think about a responsible, effective way to provide the help that is going to be needed for Ukraine. And it may be that you think it needs to go to one place, or maybe to different regional centers, to maybe regional governments as well as NGOs. The plan hasn't been written. I think it's very important that you and your colleagues be sitting there helping to communicate the best design, the best approach.
Thank you. So we must firstly do a think tank about that, yeah, and then as I understand, work with budget committee, yeah, because budget committee, I see. Okay, and it's also budget committee and White House, I think, with foreign budget, yeah, because they represent foreign. Okay, thank you. Colleagues have question, and we have comment from Anna Skorokhod. She is member of Ukrainian Parliament. So if Anna ready, we ready to hear Anna from Ukrainian Parliament. If not, we move into questions.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
I just came back from the Chernihiv region. I was in the nearest villages to the Chernihiv, and it's like being in a hell, telling the truth, because it reminds me like Khatyn. I guess everybody knows it. Because all villages totally destroyed, and today I have been in the I forgot the word in English, подвал, under the school,
basement, in the basement of school.
Yes, thank you. And there was 400 people who died because they doesn't have earth. And there was children who draw on walls, and they stayed there 30 days. And it's I can't explain, because it's totally worse, and it's unbelievable to see what's happening. And I know that everybody knows about Bucha, about Gostomel, Vorzel, Irpin, but there is a lot of places which was under occupation, and they're totally destroyed. Also, I have been on the east in the territories which now fighting with Russians, and in Severodonetsk, Lysychansk, Popasная, Rubezhная, and our guys, they're still standing like heroes, and they fight but we have to understand that they need our help every day and every moment and every minute. And yes, we're very thankful to you that the United States help us with the weapon, with humanitarian aid. But unfortunately, I have to explain. It's very horrible to say nowadays, but it's true because I'm involved in process, what's happening, and during the situation, you can find that someone lost their lives for our freedom, and someone doing corruption, and we can see that a lot of humanitarian aid totally you can find in supermarkets. You can find that a lot of humanitarian aid doesn't came to the places which they need, and it's the biggest problem that because of situation we can control it totally. Especially we work with a lot of also foundations in United States, and I just want to ask you, please don't send us a humanitarian aid which you paid $300,000 for plane to bring it, but for us better if you will help us here. And for us, much more important to have weapon here, and to have, I'm telling the truth, on the East, you even can find soldiers without what to wear. It's terrible, because when you see that someone going by, I don't know, in a like nothing happened. Sorry, I'm very nervous because I saw terrible stuff. And on the East, we can find they doesn't have, I don't know, do you know the stuff which stop the blood? It's very important to any soldiers have the
yeah, I don't remember the name, but I know that's like 40% of deaths now. It's because we
70.
don't have this.
70.
Oh
I will show you because I'm often there.
It's quite easy. It's quite very easy stuff, but really,
yes.
Yeah.
Tourniquet. It's called tourniquet. It stops blood, and in nowadays 70% of deaths because of losing blood, and we doesn't have it enough. We doesn't have enough medical аптечки. Katya, help me, please. Аптечки. Katya. I just show you. I know that NATO, they have all of it, and we are trying to find everything to help our guys. And I just ask you, don't send us humanitarian aid. Please give to our soldiers this. This is a pack of medicine. The first
aid kit, yeah.
First aid kit. Yes, not for cars, not for kids. We need it for soldiers, like a NATO standard. And believe me, it's can save much more lives than something else, really. And I every day I saw guys, I saw how they fight it, and we are all the time trying to help. We trying to support them, and believe us, it's insane in 21st century see what we see. And it's insane. For me, today, when I was there in the village and I saw everything, and I saw little kids, 1 month, 3 months from the birth, which stay in that place 30 days without light, without normal food, without nothing, and they're alive. And it's like to be in Oswiecim, or even worse. And I really ask you to help. We really need your help, and we really, for me, it's unbelievable when everything starts, and we are really like one big family. No more any discussion. Everybody like big family without any problems. Everybody help. But of course, since a lot of time, something changed. But the stuff doesn't change, and fighting on Donbass, in Mykolaiv, in Kharkiv, in Kherson, it's terrible. It's terrible what's happening, and we ask you for help, real help. And you have to understand that, yes, money is great, and we're very thankful for your support. But please, if you're sending money, control it, please. Sorry for my speech. I am under emotions, really, because what I see, I see a lot, because I've been under bombing many times, and I know what is it, and I know that before death, I don't know, I doesn't have nothing in my mind, but you're all the time trying to help, and I hope very soon we will celebrate our victory, and we will meet each other in Ukraine, in peace, Ukraine.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for your work in Parliament and for your work in the fields. Yeah, I can add to this information that really Russians also use this situation in Kherson, because they use that people haven't any food, and they have lists of like people who take Russian humanitarian aid, and they killed people who wanted to go from Kherson region. It's also true, and unfortunately it's not in press, because there you can't like be journalists there. And about first 8 kids and about treatment for blood. Yeah, it's really, we need it. And Lina Klebanova, also my friend, she like was producer of Winter on Fire, and we know her very good. She said that even Kiev regional defense, so it's people who are citizens but go to like regional army, haven't helmets and body armor, and they collect money and like do this body armor in Ukraine, because you know they can't export it. It's in Kiev region, not in Kherson, not in Mykolaiv, in Kiev region. And that's why I'm also in the first part of our discussion also said, and in every my meeting, that if you give something, please control that yes. These tools and this aid and this military aid got not only to administrations, but also to direct person, because if people in Kiev region haven't this body armor, and every body armor it's more than $1,000 in Ukraine salary.
Much more now. If it's 4+, it's much more.
Yes, now it's much more. I know that Ukrainian production, it's like 30,000 hryvnia, so it's 1,200. But of course, imported, it's more. And Ukrainians haven't this money. Ukrainian salary, it's like in Kiev, $500, and in villages, it's $50 a month. So even less. That's why people haven't money for all these medical kits, and please control all these questions and work with questions which really can save life, like Uriel also represent us projects for women's health and for hospitals. So thank you for your patience.
Can I have some? I have some question? Last one for Kendall Coffey.
If Kendall Coffey have 5 more minutes, of course, yeah.
Oh.
And Eric also had the one.
What is my question is it possible really to arrange some control of that humanitarian aid, and first of all of that weapons that deliver from USA? Because as I know, it's been delivered, for example, for the storages on territory of Europe, then it's delivered to our western part of Ukraine and to storage, and that's it. And is it possible to arrange from your side upcoming control? Because I can say I've been involved in that things, but as soon as I've been living like half of my life all over the world, and I have really like a lot of friends, and some of them who've been providing also some military stuff for Ukrainians. They unfortunately, from our side of our government, they face some situations of corruption inside. Like I know that really huge money, we receive really huge money from different countries. Some issues I know personally, some people tell me like amounts of money they send to our accounts. And I know that really a lot of huge stuff arrive from USA. And it's very strange situations because if everything we receive from you, from other countries, would be used properly and delivered properly, I guess we won't need all those volunteers all over Ukraine, all over the world that have to raise money and buy for their money. Really, with helmets, with all this stuff, it's stupid but strange problem. So my question is it possible really to arrange on some government level, like control of delivery from our like Lviv district storages to the final points, or no?
Not impossible, but difficult. And I think that to say that the U.S. will be somehow overseeing each delivery would kind of almost could interfere with Ukrainian sovereignty. I think they'd be reluctant to try to tell Ukrainian government exactly what cities, what purposes this must be used. On the other hand, I think they can do more on accountability. There are systems for doing that. It takes a while. And what I was thinking as I was listening to Anna is that maybe if we had a couple very focused issues that we sort of talk about at a very high volume, emphasize, maybe there could be a result. For example, first aid kits and tourniquets. It was kind of shocking to realize how many people are dying because they're bleeding to death. And so if we can target a couple focused issues at the same time, we talk generally about the need for greater controls, maybe we can have an impact. And so I'll certainly, do everything I can, and I'll start speaking to one of the congressional offices today about that. There are members of Congress that are especially interested in Ukraine. One of the Congress people in South Florida has Ukrainian people in the district. She has Ukrainian ancestors on both sides of her family. She's very, very interested in these issues, very passionate about it. So I'll be getting in touch with her office quickly. But again, sort of a long answer to a very important question is to implement a lot of specific controls in the middle of a war, difficult. To improve controls, possible. And then to focus on specific urgent needs might be the most realistic approach.
What would be your advice if, for example, in each problematic question, the question that was about some military request or about buying some stuff issues, everywhere I've heard the same, like two surnames of some our governors. So is it possible? Is it possible somehow? What would be your advice for us, like citizens of Ukraine, how to manage that? Like it's high-level governors, and everywhere the same two people. How to manage that kind of situation? I'm talking about the roots and background of corruption. I mean, if people interested there, I can mention these surnames because it's not a surprise to most of them, to most of our country and population, unfortunately.
You might, if you've got something like that and you've got specific information or evidence or things, maybe you can get that might be the best approach if you want to get a message that we've got to keep an eye on these two governors. They're diverting. Sometimes when you have issues like that, sometimes the best thing to do is to see if you can get a reporter who's, got a lot of attention, a lot of readers to do a story. I mean, it would be a little bit, it could be embarrassing for the Ukrainian government, but that might be the best way to do it. The other thing is to try to get the message to a member of Congress, but I don't think they would be in a position to investigate it or know what's really happening or to do much about it. But that would be the other approach, either media or.
Thank you one more time. And Eric, do you have, I know that you have also a question to Kendall, yes?
Yeah, I just had a comment to Kendall. Kendall, thanks a lot for support. And obviously, US is of great help militarily, economically, and without US, we would be dead without all javelins. And about refugees, obviously you mentioned new programs for refugees. I'm speaking to a lot of people who left Ukraine. Like Anna said, many lost their houses. But what I find is about 80% of people would like to come back. In fact, if you look in Kiev, there are long lines of people now coming back to Kiev. So we would like to bring people, there are some initiatives to bring like software people back and try to keep them here, because eventually we would like to bring those people and refugees back and obviously rebuild Ukraine. So all these discussions, identifying partners who would contribute to rebuilding Ukraine, including private sector, are really helpful. So we would appreciate if you could also identify those parties.
Yeah, and identify also potential government funding. Even without a Marshall Plan, there should be some sources of U.S. aid that could be targeted to begin some rebuilding. As you say, a lot of people don't have homes anymore. They want to go back to home, but it's been destroyed. So it would seem that would be the kind of focused program that is worth bringing to the attention of the U.S. government.
Yeah, and this is what many people do not realize, including some media, because Ukraine is not Afghanistan, it's not Syria. It's really a nice, civilized, European developed country. So like I mentioned, most of these people would love to come back. And I think we start seeing even the war zone people are coming back, to places like Kiev.
Yeah, that's really important. I don't think most Americans know that.
Yes.
Thank you. And if it's possible, I give some conclusions to our long discussion. So firstly, it's conclusions that I think we need series of discussion because many initiatives was presented, and I hope that for our American partners it also was interesting to see different point of view from different people, from psychologists, members of parliament, members of city councils, NGO activists, so people from diaspora. I think that it will be useful also for people who will watch in this video. So I will announce the next part of our work in the Institute for Democracy and Development platform. I think in several weeks we will do more. Secondly, my conclusion is like we need also to add all initiative to mail list and send this initiative to each other, and maybe to connect some people, like Nancy wanted to connect with Mrs. Lima, and so on and so forth. Third point, it's, for example, also my solution that I am now, if I collect money from my colleagues, I collect money to direct foundations which I trust, and like I give direct numbers of heads of these foundations, and they have like very deeply understanding where these issues go. So it's my solution. For example, I have like four foundations like this, which people I believe. Third, now we work also with my father on voting and on like keeping Ukraine in southern Ukraine and Kherson region, but it's a very hard situation. And I ask all of you also represent Kherson problems with the same problems like in every place which Americans know, like Bucha, Irpin. In Kherson, it's not better, and it's totally shut it up because Russians now are there and they do horrible things, even not only like political pressure, but they trying to destroy it, all people who are from Ukraine and to build their political regime. And it's very important because they trying to do their also like fake republic. Third point is, of course, directly program. If you, as Uriel presents, if he work with women's health, he have direct program for women's health, and he can work for direct program on this issue. As Kendall mentioned, is that it's very important to have like your direct program and to work on this issue in private sector and in government sector, and maybe also to add it to Marshall Plan. So, the next point, it's also working on this Marshall Plan, because we must understand how to rebuild it, because it must be complex document, and it must be understanding how to rebuild the cities or build new cities, what people will be doing in these cities, how also foreign partners have give opportunity to work. Next question is, of course, pressure to Germany, as we mentioned today, and all work which now we do to pressure to their politicians to explain really situation and to explain them, or they help Ukraine with military issues and do more sanctions, or they have big problem with Ukrainian refugees and they must create these programs. And unfortunately now we haven't so big success, but please also join to this pressure to land tax to like federal subjects in Germany. And here in DC, we also work like in advocacy way. We send in letters. We have a lot of meetings with politicians here, with people who lobbyists, lawyers who wanted to help Ukraine. And but we also need your help to organize in the same presentations, meetings, lettering, go into demonstrations. Please join. And we also ask more volunteers to do this advocacy work. It's also very important. It also prevents killing kids, this work, yeah, because we must pay attention to these questions. And the last point, which Kendall said, it's of course explanation how people who lose their houses can get like refugee status, and